Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever watched a snowball roll down a hill, you know something remarkable happens. It starts small, almost insignificant, but as it moves, it gathers more snow. It grows bigger. It picks up momentum. And soon, something that started in your hands becomes something powerful, unstoppable, and impossible to ignore. Personal growth works exactly the same way. Most people think success arrives in one grand moment, a breakthrough, a miracle, a stroke of luck. But real success begins with small disciplines carried out consistently. It starts with the first step, the first decision, the first commitment to becoming better today than you were yesterday. And if you stay with those small steps long enough, they turn into something extraordinary. You see, life pays dividends to those who respect the process. The snowball doesn't grow after one roll. It grows after 1,000, after daily choices, after nights when you stay committed instead of comfortable, after mornings when you rise with intention instead of reaction. What starts as a tiny improvement, reading 10 minutes a day, taking a short walk, practicing gratitude, learning a new skill, working on your goals, accumulates gradually, silently, powerfully. The danger is that small disciplines often feel insignificant. You tell yourself, what difference does it make if I skip today? But here's the truth. The difference isn't in the day you skip, it's in the momentum you break. Momentum is priceless. Once you have it, everything becomes easier. Confidence grows. Opportunities appear. Your mind sharpens, your standards rise, and suddenly the person you once were is unrecognizable. The snowball effect of personal growth is simple. Start small. Stay consistent. Build momentum. Let the momentum transform you. If you want big results, don't chase big actions. Chase small, repeated actions that compound into greatness. Because once your snowball starts rolling, once your growth becomes your daily rhythm, you don't have to push life uphill anymore. Life begins pulling you forward. Your job is just to start rolling. Small disciplines may look insignificant in the moment, but they are the very foundation upon which every extraordinary life is built. The challenge is that most people underestimate them. They think success must come from big leaps, dramatic changes, grand gestures, or bold breakthroughs. But life rarely works that way. Life rewards the person who is willing to do the small, seemingly simple things every single day long before it rewards the person who waits for something massive to happen all at once. Think of a single drop of water. One drop doesn't fill a bucket, but a drop repeated day after day creates an overflow. That is the power of small disciplines. They don't look powerful until enough of them accumulate. They don't feel meaningful until momentum begins to build. They don't show results immediately, and that's where many people lose the battle. Because if the reward is an instant, the discipline feels unnecessary. But remember this, the value of a discipline is not measured by what it gives you today, it's measured by what it builds in you over time. Reading 10 minutes a day doesn't make you a scholar overnight, but over a year it can transform your thinking. Saving a small portion of your income won't make you wealthy instantly, but it builds the mindset and habits that eventually lead to financial freedom. Exercising for 15 minutes won't reshape your body in a week, but it shapes your lifestyle, and that lifestyle shapes your future. Small disciplines are seeds, and the future is simply the harvest of the seeds you plant consistently. What makes these little disciplines so powerful is their compounding effect. You don't just grow from what you do, you grow from who you become while doing it. Discipline strengthens character. Repetition sharpens skill. Consistency reshapes identity. And as each small action builds upon the last, you become stronger, more confident, more capable, and more prepared for the opportunities that will come. That's why you never want to underestimate the simple daily actions. The morning routine, the quiet reading time, the gratitude list, the evening reflection, the healthy meal, the one more phone call, the extra 5 minutes of practice, the decision to show up when you don't feel like it. These are not random tasks. These are the building blocks of personal transformation. Small disciplines practiced daily become automatic. Automatic behaviors become habits. Habits shape your identity, and identity determines your destiny. What begins as a small discipline becomes a powerful force in your life. You start feeling proud of the person you are becoming. You trust yourself more. You gain momentum. You develop strength. And before you realize it, you look back and see a long trail of progress behind you, progress that was built not by miracles, but by tiny choices repeated with intention. The secret is to respect the small beginnings. Respect the little efforts. Respect the daily routines. Respect the small wins. Because in time, they create a life that feels big, full, meaningful, and successful. Remember, you don't need to take giant steps to change your life. You just need to take small steps every day and let time multiply their impact. This is the snowball effect at its best. A tiny discipline becomes a habit. A habit becomes a strength. A strength becomes a lifestyle. And a lifestyle becomes a legacy. That's how small daily disciplines create massive long-term results. Motivation is wonderful when you have it. It feels like fire, like energy, like a surge of possibility. But motivation has one major weakness: it comes and goes. It rises when life is exciting, and it fades when life becomes ordinary, difficult, or uncertain. That's why motivation alone can never build your future. It can inspire you to start, but it cannot carry you to the finish line. Momentum, on the other hand, is different. Momentum is quiet, powerful, and dependable. It doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't ask whether you feel like working today. It doesn't require inspiration, applause, or excitement. Momentum is the force you earn by showing up day after day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. People often say, "I wish I had more motivation." But what they actually need is momentum. Because once momentum is on your side, your own life starts pushing you forward. Think of a train. When it's standing still, even a small block in front of the wheel can stop it. But once that same train is moving at full speed, not even a steel barrier can hold it back. That's what momentum does. It makes small obstacles irrelevant and turns big obstacles into conquerable challenges. Momentum is built on consistency. It's created when you repeat the same positive actions long enough for them to become natural. The first day feels hard. The second day requires effort. The fifth day still takes discipline. But after a while, something incredible happens. The action becomes part of you. It becomes automatic. You don't have to force it anymore. Momentum pulls you toward it. And once momentum takes over, you work faster, think clearer, decide quicker, and progress effortlessly. Tasks that once felt heavy now feel light. Habits that once felt difficult now feel normal. You no longer fight yourself, you flow with yourself. That's why consistency is more valuable than intensity. Anyone can be intense for a day. Anyone can be motivated for a week. But consistency over months is what changes the course of your life. When you show up consistently, even with small actions, you gain power. You start trusting yourself. You start proving to yourself that you follow through. And that self-trust is the engine behind momentum. This is why the smallest winning streak is worth protecting. If you read today, read tomorrow. If you walk today, walk tomorrow. If you save today, save tomorrow. If you worked on your dream today, work on it tomorrow. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is to keep the train moving. Because here's the truth. The hardest part of any journey is getting started. The easiest part is staying in motion once momentum builds. Momentum is more reliable than motivation. It's stronger than emotion. It's steadier than inspiration. And it will carry you farther than talent ever could. So instead of chasing motivation, build momentum. Instead of waiting to feel ready, start moving. Instead of aiming for perfect days, aim for consistent days. Do this long enough, and life begins to bend in your favor. Doors open, opportunities appear, results compound. And you become unstoppable not because you were always motivated, but because you kept moving long enough for momentum to take over. That is the power of consistency. That is the power of momentum. And that is how you transform your life from effort into flow. If you've ever studied the way interest works in the world of money, you already understand one of the greatest truths about personal growth. Interest doesn't reward you on day one. It barely rewards you in month one. In fact, for a long time, it looks like almost nothing is happening, but something is happening quietly, steadily, invisibly. And then one day, the numbers begin to take off. What seems small suddenly becomes substantial. What seems slow suddenly accelerates. What seemed ordinary suddenly becomes extraordinary. Personal growth works the same way. The early stages feel slow. You read a few pages, you take a short walk, you make a small improvement, you learn one skill, you stop one bad habit, you add one new positive behavior. And at first, nothing looks different. The mirror doesn't change. The bank account doesn't change. The opportunities don't change. And that's where people quit because they confuse slow progress with no progress. But compounding doesn't work instantly. It works faithfully. Every small investment you make into yourself, every bit of discipline, learning, self-control, consistency, patience, or effort is like depositing a little more into your personal growth account. And even though the balance may not look impressive at first, something powerful is happening behind the scenes. Your potential is increasing. You're building skills that will later become strengths. You're developing habits that will later become assets. You're shaping a mindset that will later carry you through storms. You're forming discipline that will later separate you from the crowd. You're strengthening character that will later attract opportunities. Nothing dramatic happens immediately, but everything significant happens eventually. Compounding growth is sneaky. It hides its rewards until you've earned them. You don't notice your thinking sharpen until one day someone asks for your advice. You don't notice your confidence grow until one day you speak without fear. You don't notice your discipline strengthening until one day you do something difficult without hesitation. You don't notice your habits changing your life until one day people ask how you transformed so much. This is the magic of compounding. It looks slow until it becomes unstoppable. And here's the truth most people miss. The biggest results always come at the end, not the beginning. It's the final chapters of effort that produce the miracles. But you can only reach those chapters if you stay faithful during the early pages. Think of a bamboo tree. For years, nothing seems to happen. It barely breaks the surface. People walk by and see nothing. But underground, roots are spreading, strengthening, preparing. And then when the time is right, the bamboo shoots up almost overnight. 5 years of invisible growth, followed by weeks of explosive growth. Your personal growth works exactly like that. You may not see big results today, but the roots are forming. You may not see the life you want yet, but the foundation is being built. You may feel like nothing is changing, but you are changing. One day, your results will reveal the truth. You were never wasting time. You were compounding. You were preparing for the breakthrough. You were building something that needed time. So don't rush the process. Don't resent the slow seasons. Don't underestimate small actions. And don't stop watering the seeds just because the garden hasn't sprouted yet. Personal growth compounds. Slow at first, quiet for a long time. But eventually, when enough consistency meets enough time, it becomes explosive, unstoppable, and life-changing. This is the power of compounding. This is the promise of personal growth. And this is why your small efforts today will create a future far bigger than you can currently imagine. Life doesn't transform through sudden miracles. It transforms through the quiet, consistent practice of tiny improvements that eventually become daily habits. Most people wait for a dramatic breakthrough, a moment of inspiration, or an external opportunity to change everything. But the truth is far simpler. Your future is shaped not by what you do occasionally, but by what you do consistently. Tiny improvements feel small, almost too small to matter. Drinking more water, reading one chapter, waking up 10 minutes earlier, organizing your desk, writing down your goals, choosing gratitude instead of frustration, taking a short walk, pausing before reacting, reviewing your day, asking yourself better questions. None of these actions look life-changing in a single moment. And that's why so many people overlook them. They're searching for something big, while the real magic lies in something small. But here's the secret. The power of a tiny improvement is not in its size, it's in its repetition. Repeat it often enough, a small action becomes a habit. And a habit becomes a part of who you are. And who you are determines the results you get. Every daily habit is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. A vote toward discipline or toward distraction. Toward health or toward neglect, toward confidence or toward doubt, toward growth or toward stagnation. When you adopt even a single positive habit, your identity begins to shift. You start seeing yourself as someone who takes care of your body, someone who invests in your mind, someone who honors your time, someone who follows through, someone who improves. And that identity becomes the engine of transformation. The reason tiny improvements are so effective is because they bypass overwhelm. Anyone can improve by 1% today. Anyone can make a small, smart choice. Anyone can take a tiny step forward. You don't need willpower for a mountain, you just need enough for a pebble. And if you move one pebble every day, eventually you move the mountain. That's why the goal is not perfection, it's consistency. Not massive leaps, just small steps. Not dramatic change, just steady progress. When you make tiny improvements daily, something powerful happens. You create a rhythm of growth. Growth becomes familiar. Effort becomes normal. Progress becomes expected. And your habits begin working for you instead of against you. Your mind strengthens. Your confidence rises. Your standards elevate. Your discipline sharpens. Your life begins to reshape itself. Because habits don't just change your schedule, they change your identity. And identity is what changes your destiny. When tiny improvements become daily habits, your life no longer relies on luck, mood, or motivation. You create a self-running system that naturally drives you forward. You no longer question whether you'll grow today, you grow automatically. You no longer hope for progress, you generate it. And then, one day, you look around and realize everything is different. Not because you made one giant change, but because you made hundreds of tiny ones. And those tiny changes, those small adjustments, those quiet improvements, those modest daily habits have built a life that is stronger, healthier, happier, and more successful than you ever imagined. That is the real power of tiny improvements. Not their size, but their consistency. Not their speed, but their compounding nature. not their effort, but their transformation over time. Your life will change the moment you decide this. Small improvements, practiced daily, are enough to change everything. At first glance, skipping a small discipline doesn't feel like a big deal. You miss a workout. You don't read today. You delay your planning. You ignore your budget. You skip the routine. It seems harmless. Nothing terrible happens. The sky doesn't fall. Your life doesn't collapse. And because nothing dramatic goes wrong, the mind tricks you into believing it's okay. But the danger is never in the one day you skip, it's in what that skip day represents. Every small discipline you practice is part of a larger system, a rhythm you build in your life. It's not about the activity itself, it's about the momentum behind that activity. Momentum is built on consistency, and consistency is built on repetition. So the real cost of skipping a tiny discipline isn't the lost activity, it's the damage done to your momentum. Momentum is precious. It's your ally. Once it's on your side, everything becomes easier. Decisions become smoother. Energy comes naturally. Habits flow. You don't have to push yourself as hard because the weight of your own progress starts pulling you forward. But when you break a discipline, even a small one, you interrupt that flow. You reset the rhythm. You weaken the pattern. You stop the snowball from gaining size and speed. The human mind loves patterns. Every time you follow through on your discipline, you reinforce the identity of, I am someone who shows up. But every time you skip, you reinforce the identity of, I am someone who can afford not to. And identity shapes behavior far more than motivation ever will. Skipping once makes skipping twice easier. Skipping twice turns into skipping a week. Skipping a week turns into losing the habit altogether. And losing the habit means losing momentum. And losing momentum means starting from scratch again. You never want to pay that price. That's why small disciplines matter so much. They guard your momentum like a shield. They keep the engine running. They keep you in motion, and motion is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. You've probably experienced this before. Once you start exercising, it becomes easier each day. Stop for a week, and suddenly the weights feel heavier. Start reading daily, and your mind sharpens. Stop for a month, and suddenly focus becomes harder. Start saving consistently, and your confidence grows. Break the habit, and suddenly expenses expand. Consistency creates ease. Inconsistency creates friction. And the biggest trap is that small disciplines don't scream for attention, they whisper. They blend into the background. They seem unimportant. But they are the quiet architects of a successful life. The most successful people are not the ones who perform extraordinary actions, they are the ones who protect their momentum by refusing to break the small routines that keep them moving forward. So here's a powerful principle to live by. Never miss twice. You're human. Life happens. One miss is understandable. But the second miss is the one that destroys momentum. Guard it, protect it, respect it. Because once momentum breaks, you don't just lose progress, you lose the emotional energy that progress gives you. And that energy is priceless. Keep your small disciplines alive, even on tired days, even on busy days, even on imperfect days. Not because the discipline itself is big, but because what it protects is big. Your habits hold your momentum. Your momentum holds your progress. Your progress holds your future. And all of it can be protected simply by honoring the small disciplines that seem too small to matter but matter more than anything.